What is going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Jeremy Jets Chaos for another reality check. We were off last week for Thanksgiving, so let's start there. Jeremy, did you have a nice Thanksgiving and week off?
I had a very nice Thanksgiving and a great week off. A great three days off. But if you if you really want to, if you really keep a score out there, most people who know me, the good news is, as soon as Thanksgiving was over on Friday, I was locked back in. I did not fall off the wagon. I am still on my diet, still being healthy, and getting great results.
Love that. That is fantastic news. Yes, I missed talking with you on Thursday afternoon last week. It's so ingrained in our schedule here. And, for us now at this point, covering this Jets team, yes, they have a game against the Miami Dolphins this week, but I don't think anyone really cares about this game, which is just that really stinks to me that there are 5 games left and nobody, like, you go on Jets Twitter, you're just kind of, talking with Jet fans. Last night was my fiance Taylor's office Christmas party, and I go every year, and like everyone knows what I do. So everyone wanted to come up and talk to me about the Jets, but I did not get one question or one comment about this upcoming game against Miami. It was all, who's going to be the GM? Is Rodgers coming back? Who's going to be the coach? Nobody cares about these games.
Yeah, we're already looking ahead, and I'm already my thing is quarterback. Even if we're not drafting one, people think, because I'm doing quarterback videos, oh, but why do you think we're drafting a quarterback? As I have to explain to people, our channels, we do things, we pursue, and we do things that are of interest to us, that make us happy, because this doesn't, like, for me, it doesn't pay my mortgage. So I didn't expect to be looking at quarterbacks for the next draft in freaking November. It's absolutely. I was mad at experts who were predicting we were going 10-7. Like when they were saying, "Oh, we think the Jets will be like 6-5 and trying to figure it out, and then they'll start winning some." And I was like, "Bullshit!" Like I was totally like, didn't even want to hear that.
Yep.
This, and I've said it before, but I can't say it enough. This whole thing has just been devastating, but also shocking.
It has been shocking. I don't think even the most pessimistic of Jet fans or media members who just love to pick on the Jets, like, I think the worst I saw it got was people like, maybe the Jets are like a 9-8 team kind of a thing.
Yeah, like even Bad Allen was thinking 9-10 wins. You know what I mean?
Right, which is just crazy that, like, they'll be lucky to get 4 or 5 this year, which is just, how did we get here? But
well, at this point, if we're lucky, we'll stay at 3.
Yeah, that is true. Unfortunately, with Jacksonville on the schedule and no Trevor Lawrence and a week 18 matchup against Miami in the freezing cold, it would not shock me if this team somehow found a way to get to 5 wins. And that's what they do. They win games at the end of the year. And, that's why also, too, I can't get myself, I just don't have it in me to get worked up over a win or a loss with this team the rest of the way. I'm kind of like, we'll figure out soon enough where they're going to pick in the draft. Like, is it probably better to lose out for the better draft pick? Of course. But if they win a game, like, I don't have it in me to go, oh my God, they screwed this up.
Right. It's a lose-lose. It's just lose-lose. I mean, if they lose, we could sit there and say, the draft pick, but this is the worst freaking year. Like, this is not the year to tank. This is not the right draft to tank. This is like the worst. I mean, look, and the truth is, Hall of Famers will come out of this class. The difference between this and like last year and other years is, yeah, there will be Hall of Famers probably that come out of this class, but we don't know who they are. It's random. There's no obvious standout studs. There are people who love Cam Ward. There are people who love Shindir Sanders. There's people who love this one and that one, but either of those quarterbacks wouldn't even be in the top 4 last year if they came out, right? Like, they wouldn't even be like, none of them are rated at anywhere near what Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May were rated. Like, even in the way you rate quarterbacks, they don't come close. And there's really only one guy. There's only one sure kind of, premier type pick, and that's Hunter, who's going to go number 1 to Jacksonville.
Yep. which I don't think that there's a world where the Jets could get to number one, but a lot would have to break right there. I don't think that happens. But
Yeah.
anyway, what we wanted to do today was talk some coaching options for the Jets. And, yesterday we saw the Rich Cimini report rather saying that there was interest from Mike Vrabel in the Jets job, or he'd be open to it depending on who the general manager is. Joshua chimes in, so we could go to the chat, and then I want to get your thoughts. He would say, dumbest move to give Vrabel the keys. He's done absolutely nothing to deserve that. Now, my assumption is does Joshua mean that like personnel decisions? Because that's definitely one thing, but I didn't interpret Rich Cimini's report that like Vrabel wanted to run the show. I think it's more of like, hey, let's see who the GM is, and then I'll consider my options, sort of a thing.
Right. I mean, some people, if anything, are saying Vrabel and then let him help pick the GM, only because that's the only way we can get a guy like Vrabel. Dumb is saying I don't want Vrabel as a head coach. That's dumb. Like, that's really stupid, because that's so, like, we didn't even know if that was possible. Like, people have no awareness of this organization. We would be so fortunate and so lucky to have a guy like Vrabel or Pete Carroll, any of these guys, to even consider coming to this shit show. I mean, this has been a nightmare. This has been we are the joke of the NFL. You're gonna get like a guy like Vrabel, who has a background and a pedigree of winning and success and getting his players to play hard. I mean, everything that he represents, everything that he is if we had him this year, we would be at 11 wins. I mean, he's exactly what we've been missing. And I'm not the biggest, it has to be Vrabel. But, like, really? We're going to put down – I mean, who then, Joshua? Who's your guy? You're going to bring in – and I love the idea of Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for Detroit. But,
I don't think he's coming.
Right. Not only do I not think he's coming, but even if he did, since when has there been ever a guarantee on a coordinator being successful as a head coach? That's still throwing a dart. You're still rolling the dice. You're still gambling. Vrabel at least is an experienced coach. We know what we're getting. You're getting a real coach.
Yeah, that's my point too. When people point to they don't want another defensive guy, and there's a difference of someone who's had proven success as a head coach before and a first-time coordinator. Like, if the Jets were to hire Aaron Glenn, while I might like Aaron Glenn, and sure, there's a world where it works out, I get the reaction of fans who be like, this feels like Robert Saleh all over again, because it's a first-time head coach from the defensive side of the ball, or it's just something that the Jets do. Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, Eric Mangini, and it goes on and on and on and on. But this isn't the same thing. And same thing with Brian Flores too. Like, yes, they originated on the defensive side of the ball, but they've also had winning seasons as a head football coach. That's where it's not adding up to me, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, people don't distinguish between the two jobs. Head coach is not coordinator. They're two completely different jobs. Now, look, I agree with this. I'll say this statement. If we were to hire a coach that does not have head coaching experience, I want an offensive-minded guy. I mean, if we're going to gamble and throw the dart, give me the next brilliant offensive mind, right?
Yep.
Give me the offensive coordinator from Detroit or Tampa Bay, or people. There's a few names out there, people who've done, they're showing, when you break it down, have done a good job, and that's fine. But to be so black and white and say, but if an experienced, proven coach was to want to come here, I mean, that's different than hiring a guy who's never coached before. And by the way, every single team in the world where a coach is coached and left has bad things to say, right? Yeah. Like that team will say, because just like we do, just like even if we like, there hasn't been a coach we haven't bitched about. Even Herm Edwards, I remember people used to bitch about his in-game decisions and this and that. And we were always whining and complaining. So look at the record, look at the roster he had, and look at the record. Vrabel, without question, the proof, the evidence in the results is there. So if we're going to hire a proven, experienced coach, I don't give a darn about offensive, defensive. As long as they have a good track record of being good head coaches, I'll worry about the offensive coordinator they hire. But man, but I am right there with everyone that's saying it. If we hire somebody without any head coaching experience, I'm definitely on the side of at least go offensive.
100%. Oreo chimes in and says, have you all read the forums and Reddits and Tennessee accounts on Vrabel? Everyone says can't adjust in game, boring pressers, questionable benches, awful schemes. Maybe listen to the fans who saw him, question mark.
Listen to the fans that saw him. Turn on the TV and watch yourself. Why would you listen to the fans that saw him? We 20% of our fan base has hated every coach we've had, except with the exception of maybe Parcells. You're going to listen to some fans on Reddit? That's going to tell you anything?
I have a hard time basing opinions off Reddit commenters.
Well,
I don't want to be harsh,
Reddit could represent 5% of their fan base. It was a shock when he was fired. The overall fan reaction in Tennessee was anger when he was fired. You could look at Reddit people's reactions, or you could look at his record. He had a quarterback whose career was busting, a quarterback whose career was going down the drain, and he brought that quarterback back to life. He turned that entire team around and made them real AFC competitors for 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, they went, I mean, he's 54-45. So in 99 games, he has a winning record, which is unfortunately something that Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh couldn't come anywhere close to in the games that they were here for, right? And the number of times they were here for. He went 9-7 with Marcus Mariota and Blaine Gabbert his first year. It seemed like a surprise that they had, a winning record at the time. The last 2 years were rough, 7-10, 6-11. Tannehill got hurt in both of those years. And also a point that I wanted to bring out too is people go, well, Todd Downing was his offensive coordinator and we don't think Todd Downing's any good. But the previous 2 offensive coordinators that he hired got hired as head coaches. Matt LaFleur was the coordinator his first year. He got hired as a head coach and is probably a top 10 head coach in the league. And while Arthur Smith didn't work out in Atlanta, they had a top 2 offense the year that he was the offensive coordinator.
We're also wrong about Todd Downing. I'm not saying that when I say wrong, I mean, you don't know if Todd Downing's a good offensive coordinator or not right now for us. I mean, It's his fault that Aaron Rodgers, he schemed the play that allowed Garrett Wilson to utilize his skill sets to be alone in the end zone by beating one guy. And Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 8 yards over his head. That's Todd Downing's fault? Is it Todd Downing's fault that on the next play, Rodgers decided, hey, Garrett, I'm going to make it up to you, and then forced the ball to him and got it intercepted? None of that has to do with Todd Downing. So why are we beating up Todd Downing? There's nothing wrong with his schemes. There's nothing wrong with his plays that you could point out to me. Like people said, oh, well, why did he only give the ball to Breece Hall 12 times? He was averaging 4.9 yards a carry. That's not on Todd Downing. That's on Aaron Rodgers, who audibles out of the run every opportunity he gets. And that's your problem with our offense, not Todd Downing. So I'm not sitting there. I'm not going to go to bat and say he's an amazing offensive coordinator. But can we stop just inventing things and beating up this poor guy and blaming him for something he has no control over?
I'm with you. Dante with the first super chat of the day. Dante, thank you so much for hanging. Says the Jets subreddit is the most vile, disgusting place to be. If they say Vrabel is a no, hire that man now. we were talking Titans subreddit, but honestly, Jeremy, I've been doing this a long time. I can't do Reddit, and I think the worst of the worst is Facebook groups. That has been some of the worst, ridiculous. Vile is the perfect word for it, because sure, the discourse can get nasty on every platform, YouTube comments, Twitter, TikTok, wherever, but my worst experiences by far, not even remotely close, have been Facebook groups.
I have never experienced anything like it. I hadn't joined them until about a year and a half ago. I started saying, oh, Facebook groups, I can advertise my channel. Oh my God. Not
even worth it.
They make Twitter look like you have to have a PhD to tweet. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like the things I see on Facebook are incredible. Like I've never seen the craziness and the insanity of the posts that people make. It's just unbelievable to me. And the other thing is I don't trust anybody that's so black and white on an issue. Like I have my doubts about Vrabel too. I'm just saying why it would be crazy not to be okay with it. I don't know that we'd be good with Vrabel. I don't know if he'd give us a chance at the Super Bowl. But I do know that when I look at our options and who we've had, who am
Exactly.
I to complain? Oh, like we've never. When have we had a Vrabel even? When have we had one? And
I
how
don't
many
know.
years has it been since we've had that kind of competency? I mean, and for those of you say Rex Ryan, I love Rex Ryan. I
Sure.
loved him, but I think so many people forget about the last 4 years of him and what that was like.
I think the same thing because I did a video yesterday on the report and I clipped it and put it on socials, and I was genuinely surprised. Not all, but there were more people than I thought who were saying they would rather bring back Rex Ryan than Mike Vrabel, which again, I just I don't I don't get it.
Because he made an emotional speech. I can make an emotional plea right now, I guess, and convince everybody that I should be hired. I could sit there and say, I'm better than every goddamn coach out there, and I'll turn this team around in 35 seconds by holding them accountable and going back to the fundamentals. I mean, I could sit there and do a whole rant and sound really competent if I had any kind of resume to back it up. We are remembering 2009, 2010. I love him as a human being. I love the guy. I love Rex Ryan. I would never insult him in any way. But you have to look at the resume and what this team was the last 4 years he was with us and what he was in Buffalo and why did they let him go. It is a bad idea. And to sit there and say we should hire him over Vrabel is mind-boggling because you can't even compare their two records.
𝐒𝐿𝐫𝐞𝐫𝐢 two chats back to back. Vrabel got fired for a reason and then got people acting like Vrabel is Lombardi. I don't think anyone has said that Mike Vrabel is Lombardi, but the point that Jeremy made a second ago that I want to echo, this is the important part. Of the options available, Vrabel doesn't have to be your favorite option, but to think it like that it's some crazy, awful idea to hire a head coach who's won 2 playoff games, went to an AFC championship game, has coached in the playoffs 3 different seasons with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. Like I don't get it.
Right. Oh, here comes the Jeremy is delusional. Oh, I got to be a little child and attack the person I disagree with. You know what? Anybody, and that's what I mean by being so black and white. And his name is Oreo. That's the funny thing. Look in the mirror and decide what is wrong with you that you think you're so confident. You, some schmuck sitting at home watching this, thinks that you know more than everybody in the world. You know more than you're the smart guy. You know more than GMs on who to hire as coach. You're better, Oreo. You know everything. Meanwhile, how much money do you make a year talking about this stuff or predicting who will be a good coach and who's not? Actually, I do not like Mike McCarthy at all. And my friend's a Dallas fan, and that we hated the hire from the moment they hired him. So you obviously don't know me and you're not listening to me. You're sitting here, you could be against Vrabel and you might not like Vrabel, but to sit here and say I'm delusional and that you're so sure Vrabel's not good because of things that are on Reddit is so ridiculous. Because if you're sitting there saying Vrabel's not good, show me the proof. What's not good about his tenure in Tennessee? Look at the team he took over. Look at the roster he coached. Look at their results and explain to me how that's not better than anything we've had on our team since Bill Parcells.
And I think if memory serves correct, I believe the beginning of the end for Vrabel was he really wanted A.J. Brown to stay. He wanted them to pay A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
The GM and the owner didn't want them to. So they trade him. They drafted Treylon Burks instead with the pick they got. Unfortunate bust. Hasn't worked out there.
Right. And who's right?
Vrabel seemed to be right with that one.
Yeah.
But then again, in 2022, he got how many games did Tannehill started 12 games and was fairly mediocre in those 12 games, but they were 6-6. And then in 2023, I believe it was 8 games of Tannehill, 9 games of rookie Will Levis.
Yeah. I mean,
so, with no weapon too, because they lost their best receiver in AJ Brown and tried to replace him with Treylon Burks. Yes, you also have, and we have to having Derrick Henry is obviously going to help things too. He's going to be a Hall of Fame running back one day, but I don't. It's coming across a little harsh.
we have a lot of weapons and a pretty good offensive line, and we're not doing shit. So coaching matters, right? So for anybody who's saying, "Oh, it's because he had Henry," that's ridiculous, right? Because we have a good running back too. We have two good running backs. They had a legendary running back. Fine, he's great, whatever. And you could argue that, yeah, they should win some games with a talent like that. But you still have to have a team. You still have to have the defense, and you have to have a quarterback that could manage the game at least. And he took a quarterback that wasn't able to do it in Miami, and it made him look. People were arguing that he was a good quarterback for a while there. People had those shirts saying that he was good, right? Like there was the whole world of, Miami was having a heart attack saying, why we let this guy go? And now he's in Tennessee. He's this great quarterback. Look, we all know that systems, finding the right systems for the right players. I'm not sitting here saying Vrabel's number one on my list or the only person on my list. I'm sitting here and I'm just simply saying that to be anti-Vrabel seems insane to me. Like, we would be lucky to get a candidate of that caliber. It was good news that he's willing to interview for us. I'm not saying he has to be your favorite pick, and I'm not saying he's Vince Lombardi either. I'm saying if you look at who we are and what we've had, to sit there and complain about a guy that's clearly been better than any of it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like when people are saying, I don't want Derek Carr, right? And they were attacking Green Bean. How could you like Derek Carr? It's like, he's better than any quarterback we've ever had since Joe Namath, and the numbers show it. I mean, maybe he's not the number one guy that people wanted. Maybe he's not the world-beating Super Bowl champion quarterback or Hall of Famer, but we as Jet fans are going to complain about that? It's the same thing. If we were to get a guy like Pete Carroll, that's another name, and people complained, how could you complain? Like, this is so much better than what we've had.
Yeah, at least with someone like Pete and Vrabel is this way too. But wouldn't it be nice to have someone who's like, I don't know, respected around the league and has had some proven success recently? Like that's my an issue with Rex. They put, for me at least anyway, is the fans will point to that was the last time the Jets were good. And that's true. I'm not taking anything away from Rex. He gave me my two favorite years of Jets fandom by far, not even remotely close, in 2009 and 2010. That's 15 years ago now, Jeremy. At least with Seattle and at least with, Tennessee, they were a playoff team within the last 5 years. And I don't know. That's where I'm having my issue.
Yeah, and there is no perfect candidate. You know why? Because the perfect candidates or the best candidates have a job. Andy Reid has a job. I like, if you name the best coaches in the NFL, yeah, they have a job. They're not coming here. They're busy winning for their other teams. Their teams right now are competing for a championship. Those are where the best guys are. Those are where the best coaches are right now. See, we have to get what's left. And and there's two ways to go. You either hire a guy who's never had the job before, hoping he's the next Andy Reid, or you have to take a coach that has been a head coach where you could find positives in their results. And in spite of, yes, there's concerns because why aren't they working right now as a head coach? It's the same thing with Flores, right? I mean, there's concerns, but there's also positives. And I think any of the guys, like I would never want to name a guy who is less successful than the guys we've had or the same as the crap we've had. I think that every name on our list should at least be our wants should be guys who have accomplished more than what we've had. And I think Vrabel and Pete Carroll, and I mean, I think there are certain guys, if you're going after an experienced coach who's been coached before, that clearly have the resume that clearly shows that it's an upgrade from what we've ever had.
We got a couple comments. Bonesy's hanging out with us. He's been saying something similar, but I'm going to pull up JV Free's comment. But both of them seem to be on the Rodgers back bandwagon. And JV Free is saying Vrabel and Rodgers, and we are good to go with all the other pieces. I'm not in on the Aaron Rodgers return, Jeremy, because I think you're going to kick the can of the dead money too far down the line. And I'm worried about, like, yes, Rodgers this year is going to probably put up numbers that we haven't seen a Jets quarterback put up in a long time. But he's what, like we've talked about this a lot this year. He's probably like the 20 to 25th best quarterback in the NFL this season. And you're going to have to pay him an ungodly amount of money. I would rather just eat the dead money next year and roll with a Tyrod Taylor and a rookie quarterback in Jordan Travis.
The problem I have with Rodgers is If Rodgers was a guy, if he totally wiped the slate clean on who he is as a person and said, I'm willing to do exactly as coached, and I will run an exact system that you put in place, is there a chance that Rodgers could be squeezed a little bit more and get more? Possibly, yeah. But here's the issue. He's not willing. He's not going to. He's not going to play under those conditions. And nothing bad about him. He even said it. He said if it was the right situation, like he's even hinting, like if you read between the words, he's saying, I would come back, I would play. But he clearly says if the situation was right, meaning if it's not going to be somebody who comes in and says, you're going to run the play I call, no more audibles, like he's never going to tolerate that. And that's the problem, because then you're eliminating the role of the coaching when you have a quarterback out there that's going to audible every play, and it's not working. If it was working, fine. The problem is that everybody knows that Aaron Rodgers that's watching is not what he was even 2 or 3 years ago, except Aaron Rodgers, and that's the problem. He's audibling out and running plays that he is no longer capable of executing consistently. And we cannot have that. You can't have a new coach come in, put in an offense, and then it's just going to become the Aaron Rodgers show again.
That's exactly how I feel. And plus, unfortunately, after this game, Leonard Williams, who wasn't the first player to say this season, was kind of saying that Rodgers is playing like he's scared to get hit. And that's why everything's underneath. And the deep ball accuracy, unfortunately, hasn't been there. It stinks. And he's been banged up now 3 years in a row, if you want to look at it that way, too. In 2022, his last year in Green Bay, it was the thumb. He played through the thumb. And that's why we were excited in 23 going, oh, well, last year, the numbers were down a little bit because he was playing with a busted thumb. Then it was the Achilles. And now this year, he's pretty much his whole lower body, the hamstring, the knees, the ankles been nagging him. And he just turned 41 years old. So I don't know if the health is going to just magically get better now in 2025.
Yeah, not everybody's magically Tom Brady, and people just have to accept that. Tom Brady was an outlier. Playing into his 40s and still winning, he was an outlier. That is not the norm. What happened to Brett Favre? He retired. Drew Brees, he retired. Peyton Manning, he retired. They didn't play into their 40s. It's an unusual thing. It's a rare thing. And you're seeing that, and you're finding out why. If you're watching the game, you're finding out why. He's done. He's 41 years old. It's over. It's a fact that every athlete has to face. And it happens quickly. You fall off the cliff that quickly. We've seen tons of athletes fall off the cliff that quickly. It's nothing against him as a player, his legacy, anything. It's just the reality. He cannot execute the way he used to on a consistent basis. Yeah, there are certain plays. In a certain play, he can look amazing. Any quarterback that's ever played this game, as bad as they've been, the worst ones have looked amazing if you pick one play, right? Zach Wilson had plays that were amazing.
Sure.
They all do. Every quarterback has plays. Ryan Leaf had great moments where he looked like a great quarterback. If you were to pick out one pass or two passes, you got to look at the whole package. He's not winning. He's not leading us to victory. He's making too many mistakes. He's not as accurate. It's just not working. The fact that, and he is the reason for it, the fact that even in a game that we were in the lead almost the whole game, we only gave the ball to Breece Hall 12 times is inexcusable.
And he was averaging 5 yards a carry, again, for the fifth week in a row.
And there's no way that's on the coordinator. I'm telling you that's on Aaron Rodgers. Without question, if you're watching that game, it's on Aaron Rodgers.
Oreo is back and says, fine, let's get Vrabel and see how it works. I'm honestly hoping for the best, but I'm going to hold both of you to the fire if it doesn't work.
Oh, well, again, Vrabel, I don't know if Vrabel's my number one choice. I want to clarify that. I'm not backing down. I also saying that I've been wrong for 4 freaking years here. Overall, I've been wrong. For 4 years, I've been hopeful. I've been optimistic. I've been saying things are going to be great. I've been in support of JD. I've been wrong. So nobody is sitting here. I'm not sitting here saying Vrabel will automatically work. I am not making that claim. All we can do as fans is give our opinions. And like, you know, I've said things that ended up looking very smart. And I've said things that have ended up looking very dumb. So I'm not sitting here and saying Vrabel is a home run. I'm saying if you look at who we are as a team and organization, our attractiveness to coaching, and you look at what's out there in the market, I'm saying based on resume and qualifications, how much better does it get than Vrabel? That's my question.
He will be the most proven head coach that's available. That's not necessarily guaranteed that he's going to have the most amount of success of anyone that's hired this cycle. I don't think there's no way to guarantee that. We have no idea if he's going to have the most success or not. But all we're saying is that based on his resume, probably at least a good idea to interview him and talk to the guy and think, maybe he should be hired.
It's amazing he wants to talk to us. It's amazing.
But I don't get why it's like, if he gets hired and it fails, Matt and Jeremy said we shouldn't listen to Titans Reddit, and that's why he didn't work. I'm lost. I'm lost.
Yeah, it's not that I'm sitting here saying, "Oh, we hired Vrabel, we're winning the Super Bowl." I'm just simply saying, "Oh, we hired Vrabel, we got an actual real coach to come here." Like, even if he's just mediocre, like, other than someone who's just taking a new opportunity, who's never been a head coach, who's picking us? Who's picking us as the team they want to come to when there's other teams? Like Tigo said it best, Jacksonville's going to be looking. Jacksonville is going to have the #1 pick that they could either use on this crazy athlete hunter, or they could trade down for a boatload of picks. They're in a warm weather state, no taxes. Like, there's factors you have to consider. Like, who's going to pick us when there's all these other options out there? Beggars can't be choosers. I mean, I'm hoping Woody's willing to pull out the wallet, because that's the only way I see somebody coming here. Is I think we're going to have to overpay if we want a proven real coach.
You probably will. And also too, if we are saying to whatever GM and coaching candidates you interview, you have to bring back Aaron Rodgers, I think that's going to limit who you are able to bring in, because I don't think most people pining for this job are going to want to sign up for Aaron Rodgers in 2025. I think they're going to want their own guy and build it their own way. And plus, you mentioned it too, you have to deal with the comments to the media and the Pat McAfee every Tuesday and the thousands of articles that are written about Aaron Rodgers on PFT and all that stuff, Pro Football Talk. And like, I don't know if Rodgers was playing like a top 10 quarterback, yeah, you probably go, I'll put up with it. But again, at quarterback 22, you're going, can we find someone who give you comparable, production and less of a headache?
Yeah, look, the biggest problem I have with Rodgers more than anything, because there is a chance, right? Like, I'm not going to sit there and be absolutely concrete and say, oh, it can't be that he comes back next year, he feels better, his ankle is 1 year removed from injury, and he's better, right? Fine. But also factor in, there's no future with him. Like, it's no longer an all-in. We're not winning the Super Bowl next year. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry if that makes me sound like a bad fan. It's just being realistic. We're not winning the Super Bowl next year, unless it's a miracle, unless it's this crazy miracle run that maybe's happened 2 or 3 times ever in the history of the NFL in the Super Bowl era. I don't know, but we're not realistically winning the Super Bowl. So what's the point of having the quarterback be investing another year in the quarter? For what? For what purpose? I guess if you told me we want to get the monkey off our back and make the playoffs and we think he has the best chance to do it, if that's your argument, fine. But understand, for the goal of winning a Super Bowl, the goal of being a great elite team, a top 5 team for the next 5 or 6 years that's competing and knocking on the door and having opportunities in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers does not fit into that plan.
No, I don't think so. And I don't think it's crazy to say that there's a chance that the Jets could be better next year if they get the GM, coach, and quarterback right. And the quarterback is probably the hardest part of that, because this is not necessarily the draft class for you if you need a quarterback. I think each one of the prospects has major question marks around them, and they're all very polarizing for their own reasons. Mm-hmm. But even if you were,
either any of them can end up being superstars. There's no question about that. The problem is what you're saying. They all have certain concerns that also make them not at all close to, like, very risky.
Right. Which that's I understand if you say like, hey, I don't like this quarterback because X, Y, and Z for this, for this draft class. I think there's things that also could make, some traits that can translate to the next level for some of these guys, and that there is a path for them to have success. But as we've unfortunately seen firsthand with the Jets, situation also matters what you're going to for these quarterbacks to have success. So I don't know, but long story short, I don't think it's in the Jets' interest to bring Aaron Rodgers back and sign up for this again. Unfortunately, they tried it. It didn't work. It probably failed, 4 plays in when the Achilles popped, and we were, excited for him coming back this year. But he really hasn't been healthy for most of this year. To me, he was clearly hurt after the Denver game. He's tried to play through it ever since, and there's been some moments where he's looked good, but it hasn't been over the course of many full games, unfortunately. So I would just cut my losses and move on.
And just to put a positive spin, because I know I'm being very negative about who would want to coach here. I'm saying that because of perception. Yeah. I believe that a very good coach, that if we nail the right person, I believe an excellent coach can take the young core that we will still have next year. If you look at what, like, we've done exercises, right, of who's going to stay, who can afford to retain. I believe with any kind of average game management quarterback play, with a great coach, because of some of the young talent we have on this team, it is not, I'm not saying it's likely, but it is not ridiculous or completely unreasonable that we could sneak in with a wild card spot and make the playoffs if you had the right coach. There is a lot of talent that will still be here on this team. And if you find the right coach and get the right quarterback to be running it, I'm going to sit here and say it is not impossible, but we're not winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not next year. Not next year.
JV Free is saying it takes more than a year to come back completely from that injury, meaning the Achilles. Many don't come back at all. He's already proven he's come back. Now he will get even better for 2025. I mean, maybe he does.
Yeah.
He'll be 41 next year.
Right. The reality is JV might be right. He might come back and right. He might be better next year. But like, I think everything that we've been talking about in the past 5 minutes is so what? So let's say he's a little bit better. Is he going to be better enough to win us a Super Bowl? Because he's not going to be there in 26. So what does that do for us as far as the future? You're bringing in a new regime. We're starting over. We're cleaning the slate. We're going to start with a one-year quarterback. I mean, unless you want to openly admit and tell Aaron Rodgers and have it agreed, you're our bridge quarterback. I guess you're as good as Tyrod Taylor or any just bridge quarterback until we figure out quarterback. But that just seems like the problem. Again, we'll go back to what we were both agreeing on like 20 minutes ago. The problem with that is the coach needs to implement a new offense, and they need somebody who's going to play by their rules. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be willing to play within the system of the new coaching staff?
Dante's back with the super chat. Dante, we appreciate your support. He says, how do fans see the problems before the team does? From the very beginning, every fan was concerned about the coaching. Lo and behold, where we are now. This team will kill me. It does feel that way. It's frustrating, but with this coaching staff and maybe concerns with a specific defensive minded head coach is a concern of how do they build their offensive staff. And while we learned that Robert Saleh was not the right man for the job as a head coach, I think that was shown a lot, unfortunately, during his tenure. A part of the reason that we're in the position that we are now, too, is I think because the staff on the offensive side of the ball is horrible. I think it's a bottom 3 offensive staff in football, more than likely.
Yeah, look, I mean, Dante, thanks for the support. Really, that's nice of you to be doing super chats, and we appreciate it. I agree with Dante. With us, with me and Greenbean, I think the most frustrating thing for us when we're reacting the game that always comes up, we're always talking to, and now Frankie's with us and he agrees too. It's the personnel decisions that kill us. Like why is the coaching staff always 2 to 3 weeks behind the fan base in knowing what to do personnel wise? We're like screaming for a player to be play. Why aren't they playing this guy? And 3-4 weeks later, they finally start playing him, and it was like, we knew it all along. And I was like, what took them so long to figure it out? I think that's a very frustrating thing. But I mean, I think there are a lot of things that fan the fans are proven to be right about. But I think the problem with that is selective memory, because we don't talk about the things we were wrong about. I mean, I remember 80% of this fan base screaming for Davante Adams that he was going to win us the Super Bowl. Davante Adams, Davante Adams, Davante Adams. Davante Adams is still a good player. He looked really good last week overall, right? I mean, he did some really good things. But Davante Adams didn't turn this team around. Like a lot of that fan base was wrong. We needed better coaching. And so it wasn't about the player. It was about we needed better coaching. So, you know, I don't know what, you know, I think the real answer to that is we're selective. We're remembering the things we're right about, but we forget about the things as a fan base that we're wrong about.
That's also true. Very, very selective memory. That's how it happens that way, though. That's, you know, focus on the wins more than the things that we didn't nail. All right, let's get back into some of the comments here. It's very I feel like split down the middle in the chat today between wanting Rodgers back and not wanting Rodgers back. People are so against it, and then people who are like gung-ho almost about it. Divisive. Go figure. Divisive on the quarterback. Well, that's new for Jet fans. Usually we all agree on the quarterback.
We never agree. Hey, I'm different than everybody, but you know what? It is what it is. Like to me, the dream scenario would be trade back, get as much capital as you can, get back to pick 27, 28. And if he doesn't stay in school, you take Drew Aller from Penn State. And 90% of Jet fans think I'm an idiot. I'm delusional. I'm stupid, right? Because they look at his box scores and, you know, and they're like, you're crazy. What's special about him? And fine, you could all say that. But, you know, we all have our different opinions. And the beautiful thing is I stopped fighting about it. Like, we don't really have to fight over it. We could talk about it and say, why do I like this player? But the reality is in 5 years, the truth will be revealed. 4 years, we're going to know if I'm a schmuck for saying Drew Aller is the best quarterback in this draft, or we're going to know if, holy cow, Jets Chaos was right. How did he know that Drew Aller was the best quarterback in the draft? So we all have our different opinions, and we're never going to agree on anything.
Isaac says that only Jets fans would want a top 5 all-time first ballot Hall of Famer kicked off the team so quick. Well, if you're still playing like a top 5 quarterback of all time, I don't think anyone would.
Right. I mean, he's a 23rd best in the NFL quarterback, maybe not even. So I don't know what to say to that. I mean, if you look, I mean, there's different arguments. I understand he might. I don't know. It's hard to say that he has that I can't lie. I can't sit here and say I really believe there's a chance he's going to go somewhere else next year if we let him go and have a lot of success. I just don't see it because I'm watching him. But is there a chance he comes back because he heals from the injury? And it was the Achilles all along, and he comes back healthy and with a new mindset is good. Yeah, anything's possible. But am I going to beat myself over letting go of a quarterback too soon, 1 year, knowing there's no future in him, and we're bringing in a whole new regime? I mean, we'll admit that won't be the biggest mistake we've ever made as an organization.
No, but also at the same time too, like no one's killing Green Bay for moving on because then they found their next guy and have, you know, remained successful. They've been a good team with Jordan Love the last 2 years. And, you know, it's tough to move on from a quarterback who's going to the Hall of Fame. Hell, the year before or the 2 years before they moved on, he was an MVP. He won the MVP in 20 and 21. And then after a 22 season, they said, you know what, we're going to pass the keys to the next guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you just said the magic words. No one will care about Rodgers, even no matter how good he is, if we cut him or whatever happens, if in 3 or 4 years from now, if we make the right move at the next quarterback. Like, success erases everything. So if in 3 or 4 years from now, we have a great young quarterback, a franchise quarterback, nobody gives a damn if we stick with Rodgers or nobody cares. Everybody will just say, I'm happy it worked out exactly the way it worked out.
Yeah. My Holy King wants to know about if we can get Purdy over here. I don't think the 49ers are going to trade Brock Purdy, even though he hasn't played great this year and they're in a tough spot. I don't think they'll pay him. I think they're going to wait until after his 4th year to make a decision on Brock Purdy.
it also limits your offense. I mean, he's clearly a system quarterback, and that's not insulting him. He does it very well.
Yeah.
But if you look at his skill set, if at least the evidence of his skill set, there's no evidence he could succeed in a lot of other schemes. He's not that kind of guy. Like, you could see it. Like, he is very well coached, and he does what Shanahan needs very well. So there's a huge, I could be wrong. Purdy could come in and maybe do every offense and maybe be a star, but there's the evidence doesn't suggest that. And it's a huge gamble because because you might be putting yourself in a situation where the only way Purdy's going to continue to be successful in this league is if you put and implement the exact offense he has there in San Francisco. And guess what? When you don't have a guy named McCaffrey in that offense, it doesn't look that good.
Yeah, like Scott Wilson saying here, Purdy is a 2+, which to me is like good, not great, can work in the right system kind of a thing.
Yeah,
like
McCaffrey's been really good at making quarterbacks look good. Remember how good he made Sam Darnold look in Carolina for 3 games. For 3 games, Darnold looked like he did for Minnesota. Like, oh my God, he's a star. But when McCaffrey went down, what happened? So McCaffrey, clearly has that impact. Purdy was good before that, but they did have Debo in his prime at that time doing crazy things. So Shanahan's a master offensive mind, and I don't think the Jets have done anything in our history to prove that we have ever had the offensive minds that can make Purdy successful.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, on their current coaching staff, they definitely don't.
And we just don't have a history of it. Like, who have we ever had that's going to make Purdy look successful, except Parcells, because Parcells would put in a crazy defense, dominate the run, 40 minutes of time of possession, great defense, and find a way, as long as Purdy doesn't make mistakes, to make him look like a good quarterback.
Well, look at all the late 90s and early 2000s Jet staffs, how deep they were at some of the, the coordinators and the positional coaches and, everything. They had, Charlie Weiss as their offensive coordinator and Bill Belichick as the defensive coordinator. And, so many guys who ended up becoming head coaches later down the line were on those Jet staffs. Like that matters. But
coaching, man, we underestimate so much. That's why I think we really have to be careful about this decision we make. And I understand, I think that Vrabel gives you a certain guaranteed level of competency, but also I understand people's concern that in the years he was at Tennessee, there's also things he has yet to prove, like going that next level, right? Reaching that Andy Reid level of just incredibleness where your team is just a machine. And no matter who you put in there, next guy up, it just works. Now, Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes, by the way. So Vrabel did not have anything close to Patrick Mahomes. So I think on the Vrabel side, that's a fair argument to make too.
100%. A few more comments in here. My Holy King says Shanahan is going to get fired. I hope he does get fired because I would throw ungodly amount of money at Kyle Shanahan to come in here and fix the Jets.
He could have the organization. Please bring us to a Super Bowl and lose twice.
Right. Because he got to Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy as his quarterback. So,
yeah, Shanahan would be a dream. I just don't know if he'd come here after the whole Robert Saleh fiasco.
Yeah, I would say probably not. No, I think I don't think he's getting fired. But let's play the game for a second. He gets fired. I feel like the Bears are going to go nuts for him. To bring him in with their young quarterback in that offense.
And if because I don't know his personal thoughts, if Shanahan likes Caleb Williams, like if he looks at that and he likes what he is, then there's no way you're going to get him to, they already have the quarterback. If you believe, Chicago is going to have the first choice of coach that likes Caleb Williams. And you might have some that don't, you might have some that do. But any coach that likes Caleb Williams and believes he's going to be a star is automatically interested in the Chicago job over us.
Yeah, 100%. And another one too, Scott Wilson says Ben Johnson to Bengals happen yet? I think the Bengals move on from their coach, and that's going to be another popular destination because you get to go have Joe Burrow as your quarterback, which is a very nice luxury to have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Ben Johnson, again, If we were to go with a non-proven, never been a head coach, he's probably number one on my list. So, but I'm also going to acknowledge he could be a bust because it's always a gamble when you have somebody who's never done the position before.
Right. There's people, unfortunately, who are just very good coordinators. And, maybe Ben Johnson is Matt LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan or, whatever, Sean McVay, whatever offensive minds has turned into one of the best head coaches in the NFL. But we don't know. I think Ben Johnson to the Bengals does make a ton of sense, though.
Yeah, look, if I was Ben Johnson and I had an opportunity to go to the Bengals and had the offensive mind he has, and he's done what he's done with Goff, and you see Jamal Chase sitting there with a quarterback that's proven, that's already been to a Super Bowl, that's still in prime age, like, why would you not take that job?
Exactly.
It's everything. It's like if you're a coach, your number one thing that you probably would want is your quarterback. And if you believe in yourself that you're a good coach and you know you have your quarterback, then you believe you can win there.
Tom R has a chat in here that I don't agree with, but I'm going to see if Jeremy agrees with this.
Okay.
Oh, wrong one. My apologies. Arthur Smith, better option than Brian Flores or Aaron Glenn.
I don't hate Arthur Smith, but I don't think he's a better option than Brian Flores. I have no interest in Aaron Glenn, and here's why. I want him to get an opportunity. I love the human being. I do not want former Jets. I'm sorry. I don't want anyone. I don't care I don't want more Jet stink. Like it just doesn't work for us. It doesn't work. I don't want a former Jet. I'm sorry. No, thank you. It's just no. I let him be successful somewhere else. And plus, he's an unproven coach, defensive coordinator. We already said that if we go with an unproven, never been a head coach, we want an offensive mind, not a defensive mind. I think he's done a great job this year. He's overcome a tremendous amount of injuries. I like Aaron Glenn. I love him as a human being. Jet fan. Loved him when he played for us. Wish him the best. I like Brian Flores better. Brian Flores actually had a winning record for the last 2 years. It was at Miami. He was a surprise firing. A lot of the things he said, I agree with. I know there's problems there. There's issues with the lawsuit and all that. But Arthur Smith, but at the same time, I'm not saying I like Brian Flores because I don't like Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith, I hope he gets another chance. I think he's a good coach. But I don't know that we're the right fit for him. Because we just can't get another coach who's coming off a failed effort.
He went 7-10 3 years in a row. And I know his quarterback situation wasn't great, but it worries me a little bit that he wasn't able to figure out like even a average NFL offense with Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and they were like bottom 10 every year he was there. So unfortunately, I'm out on Arthur Smith for that. But he's doing a pretty good job this year in Pittsburgh. Their offense has been better than anyone thought.
Yeah, maybe, offensive coordinator. I mean, like we've said it a million times. They're different jobs. There are some people who are just great coordinators. Earnhardt or whatever, he was the coordinator for Bill Parcells for the Giants and for the Jets for a while. He was a guy who never, knew I'm not a head coach, but man, he was a hell of an offensive coordinator. And there's, I think the happiest, best people are the people who realize when they've gotten to the point of this is where I'm best. And this is what I'm meant to be. Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, now he's in Kansas City. He was for the Giants when they won the Super Bowls. Didn't work out as a head coach. There's some people who are great coordinators. That's who they are. That's what they are. And that's just the way it should be. And maybe Arthur Smith is just a lifetime, very good offensive coordinator.
Our guy Dylan's hanging out with us from Jet Nation, says, "What's up, guys? Give me a hard ass like Vrabel." That's something that I like about Vrabel too, and about Flores. They feel like they are no nonsense guys.
Yes.
And after Robert Saleh, who is maybe a little too player friendly, it wouldn't surprise me for the Jets to go almost the opposite direction. They tend to do that a lot, I feel like. You go from Eric Mangini, who is more quiet, reserved, to Rex, who is like the loud and boisterous one. And then after Rex, you go back to the quiet guy in Todd Bowles. So I could see them liking that trait from Mike Vrabel.
I want the guy that reminds me of the most of like a Parcells, right? Or even like a Belichick. And the two guys you're talking about, Vrabel and Flores, are those kind of guys, right? They're not They're not going to embarrass us. They're not embarrassing, which is nice, right? We don't want guys that are going to embarrass us, and we don't want guys that sit on the sideline with their head hung down, looking hopeless. We want guys that know how to hold their players accountable, that know how to get control of the locker room, discipline. If you look at the amount of penalties we had this past Sunday, I know some of them might have been baloney calls, but at the end of the day, it just has been 4 years of no discipline, no accountability, and the penalties are all the proof you need of this. It's never ending. It's the same nonsense, and it's also the kind of penalties. So many of the penalties are like delay a game, illegal procedure, just ridiculous penalties that just show incompetence in preparation. And I honestly believe you might see it in the beginning when they first put their systems in, but I don't believe that if you have Vrabel or Flores as your coach for an extended period of time, you're going to continue to see the same penalties over and over again over time, because these guys are no-nonsense guys, and they're not going to be afraid to bench players. They're not going to have favorites where they say you're above everybody else and you're above benching. It's like if you're not disciplined and you're not following and you're killing the team and you're hurting the team, you sit. And these are the kind of coaches that will do that.
Yeah, you have to be willing to do that and make the tough decisions, which it didn't feel like this last regime was really willing to do. They were almost loyal to a fault, it felt like. Our guy, Johnny Boy, is with us. Says, Matt and Chaos, myself and Snowball have failed you guys. We thought we could break the curse, but it's too strong. They tried to break the Namath curse. It was a great live stream and great video. Unfortunately, those powers are too strong. I don't know what you got to do to break this thing. I really don't. Dante's got one more super chat. This is a good spot maybe to close out the show. We'll react to this and then get on out of here. In Jets history, a disciplinarian usually works for the team. Give me Flores or Vrabel. I just don't want a first timer at all. I want experience. And I think that's fair, because the last time the Jets hired a coach with experience was Adam Gase, and that's a coach that nobody wanted. But before that, it was really all first-time coaches going back into Parcells. So it was Parcells and Gase really the last two with experiences.
I mean, it's just throwing darts, right? It's a different job, so it's throwing darts. Yes, if it's got to be someone that's with no experience, Ben Johnson, because we know he has the brilliant offensive mind. But other than that, it's like we have to understand, and even with him, it's a dart throw. But with guys like Vrabel, guys like Flores, at the very least, you're getting competent guys who have proven they could run an NFL team. They know how to manage a clock. They're not going to totally make be catastrophic on the sideline. And we saw that with Saleh. Remember the first year when he didn't know? I mean, it went on more than a year, but the lack of ability to even manage the clock, I can't go through that again. Having a coach and the excuse of, well, I'm new, I'm learning. We can't have an I'm learning.
Nope.
We have Garrett Wilson now. He might be the best wide receiver we've ever had if he's in the right situation. His numbers might live up to that. It might. I'm not saying definitely, but we could potentially have more talent, and we don't know it yet. But be proven that we have more young talent than we've ever had. I want to take a shot now at a coach that at least we could trust, that the coach has experience, so it gives us a chance to get the best out of that young talent.
Yep, 100%.
So I'm with Dante.
I'm with Dante as well. I like it. Give me the experience. That's where we're going to leave it on this episode. We'll be back again next Thursday from our time 3 to 4. Productive talk on the coaching. Some are very in on Vrabel. Some are out on Vrabel. We'll get to do this a lot over the next few weeks before we get this lined up.
There's going to be real fighting. It's going to be great.
All right, that'll do it, guys. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy, and we will catch you next time.